Have you ever lost your cool with your kids, vowed you'd never do that again, only to find yourself yelling at them an hour later or a few days later? Yeah, that's happened to me too. How about this? Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night wondering if you're doing the right thing or if you made the right decision for your child or if you just totally screwed up their life? Sounds like me too. Well, I want you to know you are not alone. This is what happens to all good parents. But as a child psychiatrist and mother of two, it's my goal as the parent doctor to help you find some useful answers about how you can prevent these things from happening and have each day be better than the last. After all, we all are striving to have a trusting, connected relationship with our kids, and we all want to launch kids who are ready to be adults in this great big world. Parenting is not just about raising successful kids, it's about raising ourselves, mastering our own emotion regulation, breaking cycles, and creating a home and life filled with love, resilience, and connection. If this resonates with you, please join me in the Empowered Parent Club. Follow, rate, and share this podcast with anyone that you know who would benefit from it. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Parent Doctor podcast, everyone. I'm Dr. Marissa Caudill, and I'm so thrilled to be welcoming my friend from down under, Suzanne Read, today. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Good, Marissa. How are you?
Good. I love her voice. Don't you all love her accent? It's going to be so much fun, this one. Suzanne and I met in person in March 2024 at a retreat held by a woman who's our mutual coach named Diane McKendrick of those two sisters. And we've been together in a mastermind for 6 months. So we've become friends through that process. But I've asked her to join us here on the Parent Doctor podcast because I think she has specialized experience that will resonate with many of you, or at least some of you. And that is she is a widow. And, you know, when we get married and we have kids and we become parents, part of life for all of us can include the death of a partner. And unfortunately, Suzanne experienced that firsthand. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience, Suzanne?
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. So my husband of 19 years died of leukemia on the 10th of June, 2019. He was diagnosed in 2013. So we had quite a long period of hope, of thinking that at some stage over that period in the future that he would actually go into recovery. And although his type of leukemia doesn't have a cure, there was always the possibility for him to live a long and prosperous life. But unfortunately, after probably 50 rounds of chemotherapy, a bone marrow transplant, 3 relapses, over that 6-year period, he's probably in hospital for 2 years. Unfortunately, the disease, his body couldn't fight it anymore. He was done. And I definitely see that he made the choice as I watched him suffer. He made the choice to then go and step into that next place that we possibly all go to. That experience, he died 47, I was 46, and I never knew what widowhood was unless you were in your 70s, 80s. We didn't have any experience or exposure with a young person dying, and especially dying of this disease.
So I have a friend whose husband also died of leukemia. She herself is a leukemia survivor, so that was emotional. They have young children. My cousin died at the age of 40 of a massive heart attack in front of his kids and his wife.
Right.
So it happens, right? And
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious, it must have been isolating because you're right. It's not common that it happens. I have another friend who lost her husband in her 30s. I don't know the reason. We were together in training. She moved to Texas and I learned about it from Facebook. And another friend, actually, now that I think about it, I know a lot of widows, all women. I don't know any men who've lost their wives, all women who've lost their husbands. I don't know what the stats are on that. But another person who trained with me in my MD PhD program, her husband also, I think it was leukemia too. And he was in his 20s. So that was really devastating.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess I'm curious from your perspective, tell us, like, what did your friends do throughout that journey? Because obviously 6 years was a long time for your husband to be sick and for you to be caring for him.
Yeah.
What did your friends do that was really helpful? What could a friend do if they have a friend going through a similar thing? Is it just show up with meals? Is it asking, how can I help? Is it just being there? What were the people who stood out the most as being the most helpful to you? What was it that they did?
Yeah, so I'll probably have another unique lifestyle, I don't know what you want to call it, with this one is that, so all my family live in Melbourne, which is 1,800 kilometres away from Brisbane, where I live. And 6 months before Robert died, we moved 2 hours north of the city, which is north of Brisbane, on 35 acres. So I'm here up by myself. I don't have any children. My mum and dad were my biggest support. So whenever Robert went into hospital for chemotherapy, when he had his bone marrow transplant, when he relapsed, my mum and dad, thankfully for me, had retired, and they would continuously come up to me. And during that process, we had an understanding is that I would care for Robert and then they would care for me. And then my brother, even though he was 2,000 kilometres away, he would basically look out for mum and dad. So we had this chain. And that was also to the chain I had with certain friends. And I was only explaining this on the weekend is that I had certain friends for certain parts of the caring and the illness of Robert, and then even after his death, because there are just certain friends that don't understand death. Their emotional, maybe maturity around death is even in some cases non-existent. And so I had to choose people that I knew could bear the conversation that I needed to have with them to be able to bear the emotion that I was going to release. Because the one thing that I didn't want to do from the get-go was repress my emotional reactions. When Robert was alive and he nearly died, I think 4 times over that, 6-year period. And the last time before he actually passed away, we called it the dress rehearsal. He prepared all of us for what was to be in 6 weeks' time. So I selected specific people for different roles. The food stuff was always covered by mum and dad, but I had someone cover it. They covered my errands. I was working a full-time corporate job over the period that Robert was sick, and I worked 2 layers down from a CEO for one of the biggest companies in Australia. So I ran teams of thousands of people every day. And so I needed them to be there for me, to run my errands, to be able to cook my meals so that I could go to the hospital to see Robert after work. And then that enabled me to come home and sit and relax. And our process after that was we just watched mind-numbing TV. There was nothing, no documentaries, no serious. Definitely didn't want to watch the news. So that was, I think Robert's illness was the catalyst for what I needed afterwards. And then what I needed afterwards, I had 3 select people that I talked to. And that did offend some of my friends. And it has actually meant that I've got a gap in some of the friendships now, even with some of my family. But you've got to understand who's going to be there for you. There's no use having conversations. There's no use people saying, I'm going to be there for you, but they never are, so that you can actually express what you need in a safe environment and not have others try to push you through the grief. That's what humans do, Marissa. They try to
want to make it
push you
better.
through.
Yeah.
Want to make it better. Want you to make you feel happy. It'll be okay. One day this will all be all right for you and you'll find somebody else. And it was better that he's out of pain now. And there's all these cliche kind of comments that come out of people's mouths, but that's all because they don't know, right? They get put on the spot and they don't know how to react. They say they're going to cook the meal and then the meal never comes because they get busy. So you've got to have, I believe, and this is something that I now teach to others, is you have to have the people that will definitely show up for you, because the moment they don't, that's more heartbreaking than them not contacting you.
Are you a parent who wants to read all the parenting books and you have maybe a growing list or stack on your nightstand, but somehow you just never seem to find the time to get to them? If so, I totally relate to you, and I want you to know I'm here to help. Every month on the 3rd Wednesday, I read, summarize, and present a parenting book that I have chosen that I think is a great one. And I do this via Zoom. If you'd like to get into the Empowered Parent Book Club, go to theparentdoctor.com/book club. This is totally free. It's a public service that I provide. And everyone who signs up gets access not just to the replay in case they can't make it to the live Zoom, but also to an actionable PDF that I create custom for each book that we read. So I would love to have you. This is a growing community now of over 200 members. These are like-minded, engaged, energized, supported parents who want to be more empowered for the sake of their kids. If you'd like to join us, again, please go to theparentdoctor.com/book club. See you there. So to be a good friend to someone who's going through something like this, you want to keep your word, show up when you can. And I think we all have friends who ask, how can I help? Which is kind. But it's not the same as someone who just shows up to your door with whatever it is and does your laundry and like you don't have to ask them, right? They just look around and they're like, I need to clean your toilet because you haven't done that in a week or what.
Yes.
So I think you're right. I think these kinds of difficult life events force us to redefine and maybe for the better, reestablish the hierarchy of our friendships. And I think it's reassuring to know you really only need a handful of people, even when you're going through something as difficult as what you and Robert went through. It doesn't take 20 friends, just a couple good friends who can show up and make sure that you're taken care of. And I love that you didn't give up everything just to be his caregiver. You were still doing a very big job. I love that your parents are the kind of people who just showed up and did what needed to be done. I think we can all take that from this conversation. Do the thing, show up and imagine what you would need if you were the person going through the hard time. I think that's how you take care of someone you love who's going through this. And then I think it's so hard, but you said so many things that are cliches that I do think we think it's what you're supposed to say. It's probably what's written in like the Hallmark cards, not what someone needs to hear in the moment. I think this is so much of what I do in coaching parents too, because teenagers have a lot of big emotions and it's so tempting to want to tell them, oh, this is temporary or it's going to get better or to try to see some benefit in it. At least he's out of pain now. But what you really want to do is just connect with the person in their grief, just be with them in their grief, just say this sucks and just be able to be with that. And that's hard. It's so hard to do that.
Really.
Did you lose friends? Did people disappear from your life? I imagine so.
Oh, yeah, they are. And I'm still losing them, Marissa. I'm still losing them because nearly 6 years on, I'm a different woman now. Death affects us. And death of a loved one that was your soulmate, that there was a little bit of anger and guilt after his death. But we had in everybody's version of it, the perfect marriage. And then to miss that person that's been by your side, we worked in the same company together. So we drove to work together. We ate together. We didn't have children. So we didn't have distraction. So he was everything to me. And then to lose that, I had to become a new version of myself. It became apparent to me 3 years down the track that Suzanne Gomes had died. And so what then happens is your friends start to grieve her and your family starts to grieve her and they want her back, right? Because she was fun loving and she was drinking and she was partying and she was the life of the party. And although I still am, I'm just a different form of it. And so that then means is that there are just some friends that can't connect and relate to the new Suzanne. And so I've learned through those two sisters, through Diana Michelle, that I don't have to totally disconnect from it, but we have a relationship that's a lot more distant than it used to be. And the acceptance that they have to go through their own grief and maybe I'm not their type of person now on that regular basis that we had as a relationship. It's just not there anymore. And so I have to process that and then accept that and then allow them to do what they need to do to be who they want to be. And you identify a lot of people that have a lot of growth themselves that they need to do. And I pushed that a lot for a little bit at the start of my grief. But then again, I relaxed back into who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I need to be around to actually move through this emotional process that's I've been dealt with with love and care and affection and embrace it.
Yeah.
And sometimes just others just see, they just have a different view of it. And then I became spiritual. And then I hung out with those two sisters, which people think are a cult. And you start to have a community.
I'm all in it too. Like, I think what you just said is so profound. And I don't think it's just limited to the inevitable change that happens after losing a loved one. I think anything that is an impetus for massive change in anything that shakes you up, that wakes you up, that puts you on a different path in life is going to lead to loss of friendships. And what is that saying? Like, you can have some friends are for a reason, some are for a season, and some are for a lifetime, right? And it's natural. I just read, do you know Mel Robbins? I don't know if she's this.
I love Mel Robbins. She's
I do
my
too.
favorite.
Did you read her Let Them book? Because so it's basically that idea, right? We don't have to be sad about that. That's normal. And I'm actually teaching my kids this too, that friendships are not, it doesn't mean anything bad about you or the other person if the friendship morphs, change, or becomes more distant. It doesn't mean that your love for each other is any less real or meaningful. It just means that its season has ended. It served its purpose. And now they're going on their path and you're going on your path. And you can still come back with love to one another. It doesn't mean that you hate them or they hate you, but we tell ourselves these stories, don't we? That if this person isn't responding to me or hasn't messaged me in a while or didn't respond to my last text, that they don't like me anymore or that they don't care about me anymore. None of that is true. It's just you get to a different season and a different stage of life. And you went through that, I know, when you met James. So tell me about that, because I'm sure that was its own for him and for you.
Oh, definitely. So 3 years after Robert dies, I decide that, yes, it's time to, I shouldn't say I decided, my girlfriends decided about 2.5 years that it was time for me to meet somebody. And we met on a dating site. And the one thing that connected with James straight away is that he did have a level of spirituality, that he'd been through his own trauma, that he'd had life experience different to mine. He was a single dad with 3 kids, and most of my friends said, keep away from him, keep away from him. What are you doing? Why would you want to? And he had a grandchild. Why would you want to? He's got custody of 2 of his, or he had custody of all 3 of his children. Their mum isn't in the picture. And that was just, and then there was the financial aspects, because I've got property and I didn't have children, so I have investments. So I have all this thing, and he had a different story to mine. So there were all these opposites that were coming out through my conversations. And I found that I was defending him on a lot of them, because what he gave me was connection, love, affection, all the things that I'd been missing, not only because I had that with Robert, but because now it was so much more profound. I'd actually worked through in terms of what I wanted from a man. And I thought in some cases it was tall, dark, handsome, financially fit, all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't. I ended up, those dates didn't work out. This date with him was super amazing, to the point where I was like, this guy's got something that I need. It's not that I want, it's actually what I need. And he makes me feel so good around him. So I go from living on 35 acres on this property, wanting to build my dream, thinking about maybe working with widows. And then this man steps into my life. He's got 3 children, 1 grandchild, and then he throws everything upside down, and I fall in love. And I start to then navigate this different world, because I didn't have children, and now I've got this possibility of children. And at first they were, wow, this is a really nice lady for Dad. She seems really nice. And then move on a little bit more, and then things started to unravel, and then Dad's taking maybe Suzanne's time a little bit too much. And and then a whole nother course then starts to present itself. But my friends in particular, and even some of my family, they put up the warning signals. This isn't right. You're taking on too much. You've got to consider yourself. Are you really ready for this? There was lots of negativity. And then I'd be defending it, and then I'd say, but I really love this man. Okay, I'm just And there were some friends that were genuinely there with a genuine heart, and I could tell that they were just giving me, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Yet? So it was in a different framework in terms of how they presented those maybe risks and maybe their own projection of fear,
Mhm.
where there were just some that were just like, are you really sure about this? And I'm like, yes, I am. Once I really started to get a little bit frustrated with my friends because then they were doubting my intelligence,
Mm.
that I'm an intelligent woman. I'm not stupid. I go into everything with my eyes open. I always have. I've got a wealth of experience of corporate life and dealing with the biggest bullies and the biggest egos. And I was pretty sure I could pick it if he really was a bad person or if he was there with other intentions outside of love. But I wanted to say to them, which I didn't, hey, give me some credit. I'm not silly. I wouldn't go into this without my eyes open. I've got a holistic grief counselor that I'm doing all this work with. I've got 2 coaches that I'm doing all this work with. I'm making sure that I'm asking the right
Right.
questions to make this work. But yeah, the questions in my community and the doubt and their fear that they projected on me because this was something that they wouldn't do themselves doesn't
Why?
mean not
Why do you
right
think
for
that is?
me. Because I just think at 40, what was I, 48, 49, I was 49, taking on 3 children because their
Mm.
mother's not in the picture, taking on a grandchild, taking on a man. There was a whole thing around that he rents rather than he actually owns something. Right. And I'm like, the financial aspect I'm not worried about. They would say that they were worried about it. I'm not worried about it. And I'm a single woman, no children. Where does my money go? And I would say to them, if I'm going to be if I'm going to be taken advantage of in this relationship, then even with half of what I've got, if that's what it came down to, and that's why I was very aware of the situation, I've still got more than enough to live my life fulfilled. And then it started to just then I started to get angry with people
Yeah.
because the acceptance, but again, I worked out it was because if they were in my situation, they wouldn't take this on.
Right.
But I was in my situation, and the biggest thing that I hadn't had in my life that I didn't realize was big missing piece was being a mother. And then I had the opportunity with this man to be a mum, possibly be a mum. And that was worth everything
Yeah.
to actually go on this journey with him.
I love that you have such an open heart that the fact that he's a dad of 3, which would have made many of your friends run in the other direction, actually made you feel like, huh, this is something I want. Yeah. And I imagine, I don't know, the timing. Did you and Robert always plan not to have children, or was it his illness that kind of took that off the table? How did that go?
So at the beginning, we were very career orientated. I was on the pill. We went off the pill I went off the pill a couple of times. And then there would be another trip and we traveled to some amazing places around the world. And then when we moved from Melbourne to Brisbane in 2009, in 2010, 11, we went to a fertility doctor. And basically, he sat down with us and said, we've done all the tests, Robert's no problems, but you have just turned 40 or you're just about to turn 40. And basically, you were the most fertile at 14 when you first got your period. And as a result of that, you're probably done. And it was, and that's literally what he said to us.
Oh my goodness.
The only opportunity, the only
This is
opportunity.
when he was going through his treatments, or
No, this was before. Yeah. So then they were like, it's you, Suzanne. We can test your eggs and we can do all this and all that kind of stuff. And the only option is IVF. And even that, when we look at you, we're not 100% sure. And maybe you should go away and think about this. We did. We went away and thought about it. But then, so from 2011, I remember we went on a trip in and then in 13, we went on a trip to Mexico for my 40th birthday. And we were like, yep, we're going to do this. Let's try it. Let's actually do what we need to do. But we got home in the July and he was diagnosed in the September. And then in a split moment, we had to make a decision because he had quite advanced leukemia and they needed Friday morning. He wakes up, he's ill. He's had tests during the week. His doctor rings him and says, get to emergency right now. Where do you want to go? Well, the specialist will meet you there. We think you've got pneumonia. But there were other obviously indicators in his blood tests, to then having a bone marrow biopsy that afternoon, to then being diagnosed with leukemia on the Saturday and then starting chemo on the Monday. So, and then he was in hospital for 35 days after that. And so we had to make that decision to freeze his sperm, and he just couldn't do it. We sat there for an hour contemplating it. He was contemplating death.
Oh.
He was contemplating that his world had been thrown upside down, and he just said to me, Suzanne, I can't do this. And I said, it's okay.
Yeah.
Sweetie, it wasn't meant to be. It obviously wasn't part of our agenda. So we just accepted that we couldn't have children, and the door was shut.
That's a lot. I'm just imagining, I think I've never been a man, obviously, that I remember anyway. But the whole idea of having to go in a room and produce a semen sample is like kind of nerve-wracking if you imagine the equivalent as a woman. To imagine being asked or even contemplating that hours after receiving such a scary diagnosis, I can't even imagine. Of course, he couldn't go there then. And of course, you can ask him to. And yeah, I think you're right. It wasn't in the cards for the two of you, but I have no doubt, I know actually from what I've seen of your interactions, are made to be a mom. You're a wonderful mom. You have such a loving maternal presence. And so are they all three girls?
Yes.
Okay. And how old were the girls when you and James got together, and how old are they now?
Yeah. So 16 would have been 14 and 12. And they just moved from Adelaide, again, from a kilometres perspective, a couple of 1,000 kilometres back to his home state. And the oldest one, she'd had a baby at 15.
Oh, wow.
So he'd taken the girls back to Brisbane to give them a better life, to give especially his oldest one a better life, with her little Bubba, I think was probably about 6 months old when they moved back up here. So then all of a sudden I'm meeting this man, and then I'm meeting his daughter with a baby, and then his two other daughters. And it was all like, so now they're 19, and the 19-year-old has 2 children, and she actually lives here on the property with us. The 17-year-old lives a couple of hours away from us with James's sister. And then the 15-year-old, she actually lives in the house with us. And the 15-year-old is definitely I'm the closest to. She's been living here now for 2 years, and she is my daughter, even to the point of you can see her mannerisms and the way she talks. And she's even gotten to the point where if someone's got to take her to the bus stop or someone's got to take her somewhere and there's a choice, it's Suzanne, do it. Or if James says, I'll do it, then she's, no, I want Suzanne to do it. And we just have this beautiful relationship. And I know she loves being a single child, an only child in that house at times.
Oh, but it's like a gift for both of you. I'm sure you're such a welcome addition to her life. And likewise, she is to yours. It's such a happy ending there.
And it was also,
I'm sure it hasn't been all smooth either, because
no,
coming in as stepmom to a preteen couldn't have been easy. How did you navigate that? Any advice to people who find themselves in that situation?
It's really interesting, Marissa, because I had a little the universe must have known that this was coming. So just before I met James, I started to do mentoring at a local high school with 13, 14-year-olds. And these were volunteered 1 hour a week where I'd go in, and they were low socioeconomic in the community. Families were struggling some sort of way, or they had trauma. And so a group of us would go in and mentor them and be their friend and show them a support system that they didn't possibly have at home. So I had all this training around how to manage teenagers, and I'd had a couple of goddaughters myself, and they'd gone through the teenage years. And for whatever reason, I was never that clucky like woman. I never got clucky when babies were born. It took me a little while. Even I'll say openly, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but it was my approach of until they can talk to me, then I'm not sure what they're here to do for me. Because
What does clucky mean? I don't really know that slang.
so clucky is an Australian term where you go all gaga when a baby's born and yes,
Okay, got it.
let me hold them.
Baby crazy.
No,
Yeah, got it.
yeah. So I was never that woman. So then when the opportunity came to I wanted to do some volunteer work. So they trained me on how to talk to a teenager, how to respond, how to sit and listen. I'd been a pretty good listener from my corporate job, but this just took it to a whole new level. So this training, it was like it was just bringing me into practice of having a teenager in my home. And like I said, yes, it hasn't been fabulous time, but the older she's getting, the more she's becoming the young lady that we'd hope she'd become. And James has said to me, in the environment that she was in with me down in Brisbane, the school she was in, he said he was really concerned for her in terms of what path she was going to take. And they were really at loggerheads with each other, arguing a lot, massive fights, massive tantrums, screaming, yelling, slamming doors, punching walls, that whole kind of behavior comes here. Yes, we've had door slamming and yes, we've had lots of yelling but at the end of the day, what she was wanting most of all was love. And James and her mum broke up when she was 2. By the time I think I'll probably have the years wrong, but maybe 5 or 6, he had full custody of her. She didn't see her mum for periods of 2 years. And then she just wanted the nurturing of a mother. And then she comes into my world and I realize that I want the nurturing of a child. And even the girls look like me, dark hair, long dark hair. People don't even question that they're not my girls. And she just brings me so much light. It's just truly amazing. And then she's so beautiful. At my last birthday, which was this month, she gave me this beautiful note around how much she loves me. She doesn't say I love you. And that's okay because she's a teenager. But she sent me this beautiful note saying, I love you, Suzanne. I'm so grateful for everything you've done for my family, for my sister, for my dad. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And it was just beautiful. I've got it hanging up here on my vision board because the possibility, as soon as I had the possibility to be a mum and not a stepmom, I might refer to some people as a stepmom, but I took on the role as a mother and I fully committed myself that I'm going to do what I would do if they were my children, if I'd birthed them.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you are their mom. That's so beautiful. Oh, I love that the universe brought you all together. It's just meant to be. But I guess I'm curious if you could think back. There's no way you could have predicted this outcome, I would imagine, right?
No way.
I can only imagine there were probably months, if not years, of just tears every day and not knowing how you go on. But tell me more about how and when did you leave your corporate job to do what you're doing now? And let's talk a little bit about what you've become, because you've really changed and you're doing something now that is related to what you've been through, but so beautiful and so wonderful. And I want everyone to know about that too.
Yeah. So Robert died in the June and I'd taken 2 months off in his last days. Then my employer said, you can have whatever time you need off. We're not going to push you to come back. And I took full advantage of that. I didn't know through that period, so it was about 3 months, I was up and down around what I wanted to do and how I was going to live my life. All I did know is then when we made the move to the 35 acres, I truly believed that was the gift that Robert gave me, that moving here was about me changing my life and having this property as the supporting foundation of what my next path would look like. And I came to that conclusion quite early. So then the thoughts of going back into the corporate world really started to, I suppose my nervous system would get all out of sorts when I thought about going back to it. And the rationale around it was outside of the financial side, and I can financially support myself and that sort of thing. There was, in my role of thousands of people, and obviously they didn't all report directly to me, but I was on the road a lot. I'd have a team of possibly 10. They were all needing one-on-ones and care and love and support and decision making. And I'd have to then deal and sit in meetings I now realized would be really, what are we doing? And my husband's just died, and you're fighting over some little piddly thing that we could have sorted over email. So my whole rationale changed around what was important from a work perspective, and my tolerance for people who felt that they were owed something, and especially in this corporate environment that I was in, was at zero. So I went to Vietnam on a little bit of a soul search. I met up with some friends over there, and my friend and I we had a massage. And during that massage, Robert came to me in full visualization. I'd never had a visualization like this before. And he was like waving to me, and he was on a beach in Bali, and it was exactly, I remember, I actually could remember that I've got the picture of him here at home, and he was walking along the beach, but he was telling me to come to a new place. And then he opened up and I saw the cabins, these beautiful cabins that we bought this property for to actually build. And then they all came to light. And I literally came out of that. There's a lot of other kooky stuff that went on in that massage, but I came out of it and I said to my girlfriend, I'm resigning. And she said, what? You're going to do it? And I said, yep, I'm going to go home. I'm going to just sit on it for one more week. And then I'm going to ring my boss, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to resign. I'm 95% sure. And I did. I just came back and I just resigned, picked up the phone, and I'd met with my boss a month before that. And he already knew from the way I'd rationalized and logically thought through what I needed in life. And he already knew that logical thinking was going to bring me to this conclusion, and it did. On the 15th of September 2019, I went on a phone call with my colleagues and my team, and I told them I wasn't coming back. And so I never came back. So I basically ended my working life in April 2019, and I became free. I became free to do whatever I wanted, the path I wanted to take in life, which is where I am now.
And I didn't realize. Okay, so for all of you, is this the story that you wrote about in the Aligned Woman's Way Volume 2?
I think so. I don't remember what
we're
I've
both
written.
authors in an upcoming book called Aligned Woman's
Yes.
Volume 2. And
Yes.
I've known you since you opened the cabin, right? That
Yeah.
was, but I guess I didn't realize the backstory that this was 5 years plus in the making, this vision.
Oh,
Cabins. Incredible. I didn't realize what an emotional day that must have been and how exciting it must be to now be running Coolabine Retreat. For everyone listening, you can find information about Suzanne's beautiful, I haven't been there, but I've seen videos and I've seen pictures that other people have sent from your land and your horses and these cabins. She just has rolling acreage of greenery. Is there a river or something? Some water?
yeah, there's a creek that runs through the property.
It's just incredible. And the sounds on the videos, it just sounds so nice too. Australia, if you haven't been, is so, so beautiful. I want to go. I can't wait to go. So she's now running retreats there, individual retreats for people who are grieving after loss, so widows, and doing work as a grief mentor, right? So tell me more about that. Do you do that at the property or do you do that virtually? How does that work happen?
Yeah. So after Robert died, I'd already started to write a book, my first, which is called From Wife to Widow. But while Robert was in hospital, it was a survivor's guide as a carer. Yeah. So then the ending changes, right, from wife to widow. And then so after I resigned, I said to myself, I'm going to finish this book, which ended up being 2 books. So I've written From Wife to Widow and then From Corporate to Country, which is that whole transition of corporate life into this country life that I've now built for myself. And I came up with the name Beyond the Widow. And because while I was searching for groups and community to then connect with like-minded widows, it didn't matter what age they were, I just could not find that group or community. And I was seeing a holistic counsellor at the time, and even she couldn't connect me with anybody. And so I thought to myself, hey, I've got this background of leadership and nurturing, and I'm becoming even more softer as I go through this process. So I developed Beyond the Widow. And so Beyond the Widow is a grief mentoring business. I run group retreats at a beautiful property just down the road from me. I then run individual retreats, so working one-on-one with women and men around processing their grief and looking beyond the status. That's why I'm called Beyond the Widow. So I only work with people that actually want to step into their new path, but just don't know how to do it. I have one-on-one sessions with widows or anyone who's grieving. And I've even mentored a man who was dating a widow and just didn't know how to actually navigate a widow's world and understand if this was normal and this normal, and is this emotion normal, and is this all the pictures that she still has husband up, if it's normal. And then I thought to myself, I should actually just go in grief for everyone, which is loss of marriage, loss of health, because at the end of the day, we all experience grief due to an event in life. Not one of us gets the opportunity to miss that one. So then I do one-on-ones, but then I also run a grief couch once a month where people come and I talk about a particular subject on grief, and it gives my clients a way to connect with me and actually see if I'm the person for them that they want to jump into retreats or into mentoring with. Then I have a podcast like you do, Marissa, and fortnightly newsletters. And and now I'm starting to actually attend events where I am ready now to be seen as the woman that can inspire others to step into their new identity. And I talk about that now. Grief causes you to step into a new identity. And most of the time, the reason why grief lingers for so long is because people are very fearful of changing and not being who they were when they were in that part of their life. So being an example and actually being able to show them lived experience from somebody who knows, that's what I do. And I don't have a counselling background and I don't have a psychiatrist background. I have lived experience. I've been trained as a mentor. I provide support and an open heart to those that want to step beyond their grief.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So everyone, I'm going to put the link to Suzanne's website, which is beyondthewidow.com.au for Australia. And from there, you can find information about her retreats and about her cabins. And if you have the opportunity to work with her, obviously you can tell that her heart is humongous. It can reach all the way to America. Or you can go to Australia like I did. It's really a fun place if you haven't been. So thank you so much. I think this was beautiful to hear your story, to hear about your journey to motherhood. There's so many different paths, and you're absolutely right. We shouldn't really define mom versus stepmom. A mom is a mom. And when you make that commitment to another person, it's forever. So I love that you have that relationship now with your girls, and I'm so thankful that they have found you.
Yes, definitely, Marissa. Definitely.
There goes my light again. All right. Thank you so much. This was great.